Vaughn he's got a very unique way of doing things. Guy does custom clothing, but just all around good dude. Excited to have him on the podcast today. So Vaughn, can you give us like a 1 minute intro, man, just about you, how you got into what you're doing, and let's just start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up on a horse farm out in the country, like small little country town, one stoplight. My father started a clothing, like brick and mortar retail store back in 1978, I think. And so anyway, man, I just grew up in the clothing business, being around it, and then went off to school thinking I want to be a doctor or an attorney, full academic scholarship. We had a deal like I had 6 months worth of living expenses as long as I kept my scholarship, and I blew through that in like 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, crap. Like, I can't ask the old man for more money, but I'll definitely ask for a job. And so I worked through in our back room, shipping and receiving for 4 years, and ended up marrying my high school sweetheart. We dated all through college and asked if I could have a job. It was all in one day. I asked my father if I could have a job when I graduated in a year. So we were going into our senior year, just as a salesman. And he was like, yeah. And then I immediately called my now father-in-law and asked if I could meet him later. Asked if I could marry his daughter. He said yes. And then I asked her that later that evening, and she said yes. So like, dude, that's we just celebrated 18 years of marriage. So that's like
Right on,
20
man.
years. Yeah, we're 18 years on all those decisions, and they're still rocking. So that's kind of how I got to this point, really.
That's awesome. Hey, we were 18 years on the 2nd of July, so we were only about 28 days behind you. So,
Dude, that's awesome. Congrats,
Yeah.
man.
so well, cool,
How come-
man. Hey, let me ask you this, man. Vaughn Granger just kind of sounds like a clothing brand. So, like, where's this name from, man?
So it's a family name. It's funny. William Vaughn Granger is my formal name.
Okay.
And I grew up thinking I was a junior. And it turns out my father does not have senior attached to his name, and I do not have junior attached on any of my documentation. And so, like, I was signing something, I don't know, about 2 years ago, and it had all my aliases. And I was like, dude, this is such a cluster. But it's just a family name. William is not really my vibe, and I'm not a Bill. I do have a son. So my daughter's name, my youngest daughter, is Chloe Vaughn Granger, because I thought we were done with two, and ends up we're not. So we have a son named William John Granger that we call Liam. And actually, in 2016, I started a clothing company called Liam John, because the scariest thing I've ever done in my entire life was have a third child. For a lot of different reasons, came to know the Lord through that process, which was really cool. And so the second scariest thing I've ever done in my entire life was start a big boy business, as I call it, from scratch. And so I was like, well, I'll just name them the same thing, and then that way we'll just go with that. So
That's awesome.
anyway, yeah, names matter.
Well, hey, man, I've kind of had the pleasure of working with you, I think going on about 3 months, 2 months we first met. Our first meeting, I got Sam, who I share my office with. He's like, hey, I got this guy Vaughn coming out on Friday. I'm going to meet with him, beat him up a little bit, and then you can meet with him, talk to him about business. So I didn't really know what to expect, man. So when we had our first meeting, meeting you for the first time was cool, man. So, tell everybody, like, what it is, man, that you really specialize in. Cause I think, it's easy to be like, oh, you're just a guy who's kind of like someone who helps guys get dressed. But like, dude, you're really like an artist at the end of the day to help really bring out, the look and the feel and the confidence, man, of guys. So like, can you really kind of break down, what you look at when you look, at ways to help guys?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess to kind of backtrack, like, Sam did beat me up. We talked on a Sunday, and I'm southeast, right? And that Friday, 5 days later, I was meeting with you. So like, obviously I trust Sam. And when I met with you, I was like, dude, I don't even really know why I'm here. And in the last 3 months, man, it's been crazy. And so, like, if I just use like what you do for you, what you've done for me, and what I know you do for a bunch of other guys and entrepreneurs and business owners, is like, it's all about confidence, right? So, you know, most guys have had some woman in their life dress them their entire life, whether it was your sister, your mom, your aunt, your grandmother, and even now, you know, maybe it's your wife or a friend or whatever. And so, like, most guys never really found their own style for the most part. And so really what I do at the end of the day is all of us, every guy has some vision of the way he wants to look, and most guys can't articulate on it, and most dudes definitely cannot put it all together, right? And so what I am is I extrapolate who's Jesse, what's he about, what kind of, like, what's his vibe, what kind of car, what's his personality, what's his brand, and then I translate that over to clothes so that, like, the easiest way to think about it, if you've ever seen a guy walk into a room, or like worse, if you've ever been the guy walking in, you've like got on clothes that are wearing you, that sucks. Like, there's all this self-consciousness, and like you're inherently being selfish at that point. So you can't even like network and connect and do all these things because you're worried about, like, how do I look, versus walking in there knowing you look on point, and you walk into that conversation with that confidence. And, you know, it's really kind of interesting because you and I spend a lot of time on self-development and self-improvement. You know, it's really the clothes themselves are superficial. Some guys have to start on the outside and then begin to work on the inside, or either the other way around. They've spent a lot of time working on the internal stuff, and now they're stepping up that external, and it's more of a reflection of what's going on the inside. So, like, I just kind of meet guys where they are and make that journey with them. But they don't have to figure it out. They don't have to worry about, like, how did these clothes fit? How are they supposed to fit? How to put the outfits together? Like, I take care of all that. So I'm the easy button.
That's awesome, man. So really, you know, what I look at is, you know, you really customize and tailor what people wear based off of, you know, their personality, based off of, you know, what they do, who they are, what they want to represent. You know, which is really unique, man. So to me, it's very different than just, you know, say going to Nordstrom's and being like, hey, can you help me with these clothes? But like, it's really like you get to know the person. You know, you've been doing this for a long time. You know, you really get a better understanding of this person. Plus, you know, you're a business guy, so ultimately you understand that. You've done a lot of personal development. How is that, you know, impacted you and like how you show up today as a business owner?
Oh, it's changed my whole life. Like, I was adding it up the other day. I think I've spent close to $100,000 in the last 12 to 18 months. Prior to that, I know I spent at least $500,000 on self-development after school, like, right? And I'm a completely different guy. And not just in business, because for me, business is kind of like clothes, right? Like, my business is an extension of who I am and my purpose and my calls.
Yeah.
But like, dude, I show up different at my house because of, you know, meeting guys like you and Sam and other people, you know, that we have in common and some that we don't. It's just, it's, you know, you talk to guys and they're afraid to pull the trigger if they've never done it. But like, I've never seen, no matter the amount of money, I've never seen it not pay off when I invest in myself. And again, it can be about like clothes or coaching or learning a new skill in business, like marketing. I mean, you're collapsing time. And at the end of the day, that's the number one thing that we can't get more of. And we're not I like to operate like I have some extra time. But at the end of the day, dude, I can make more money, I can leverage, but I cannot find more time, and I don't know when my time will be up.
Right. Let me ask you this, man. What is kind of your own transformation you've made just in the last, 3 to 4 years that's had a huge impact on your life?
That's a good question. I had to get comfortable with being a leader. That was probably the biggest one is understanding that I've always wanted to be good at what I was doing, whatever that was. Sometimes that's, not always played out great, depending. But like I've always wanted to take pride in what I'd be the best trash man, whatever it is, right? And so I've always found myself in a leadership role, but I was so afraid of being in the limelight, like it made me uncomfortable. And the biggest shift for me personally in the last 3 or 4 years is like, dude, Vaughan, you have to step into the light, no matter how freaking uncomfortable it is, because you've got to lead others. They're counting on you. Like everybody's pouring into someone and leading someone. And that goes from your family to your business to these other things. But like, if I want to have the impact and build a business where other people can provide for their families and help people and do all this stuff, like I've got to have the balls to step out there. And even like leading a family, I got to be willing to take the heat for my wife when I know what we have to do and like say, no, this is where we have to go. Trust me. And then I have to deliver on that. And just being comfortable with like not shying away from that leadership role has been the biggest, like being bold in it and courageous in it. And it's always scary. Like, and I think that's the biggest transformation for me personally.
Nice. That's awesome, man. So talk to me a little bit about, business stuff, like prior to us meeting, like what were some of the things that maybe you were struggling with just in your business and some of the things you were doing that, maybe you weren't doing at the level you are now?
Man, so prior to meeting you, during COVID, I like somewhere, actually Warrior Week plus, like I went through that and then I had another virtual experience and I saw technology being used in a way that was so cool, creating connection and reaching people that like you would never reach, right? And again, going back to like growing up in a little country town, like everybody knows everyone, right? So you have a very finite pool, especially in business in terms of marketplace. And I was like, man, like you can be there are a lot of people in the world. So if you could market to the world and you like to think about your audience, whatever, I was like, there's opportunity there. But man, I was buying like at Russell Brunson, like ClickFunnels. Like I've spent $297 a month for like the last 3 years and never ever sold anything through a funnel. Like, because it's a great tool, but it's a tool, but I didn't know how to use it. And so I just was chasing my ass, for lack of a better term. And then compare that, like I was paying for ads that didn't return stuff, I'd invest $1,500 and like I might as well just burned it in terms of the return from a business perspective. Now I was obviously learning and things like that. It brought me to this point where I had enough pain to say, all right, I got to go find an expert. And then, man, when we started working, night and day. I mean,
Yeah, man, let's talk about the first meeting we had. What was like the biggest kind of shift for you, just, being here, kind of mapping out your business? Like what was the big shift that you had doing that?
Dude, the biggest takeaway that I had from our meeting together was getting clear on my offer, right? So like the way that I used to operate from a clothing perspective, like, I'd sit down with a client and we had this process, but it was very much like I was the only person in our company that like had the skill and the questions and like they could do it, right? So I was always like I was always the number one bottleneck. And then one of the biggest things you challenged me on, and I remember the question, I was like, all right, so Jesse, you're telling me to get clear on an offer, but like, what does that mean? And basically what I heard is you're like, dude, if someone was going to have a transformative experience with you, what would that look like? And immediately I just started like drawing it out on a whiteboard. And as soon as you and I got clear on my offer and a very clear result that I knew that if I was going to be like the best, like this is what I know I can do very, very well for guys. And if they want it, this result, I with 100% guarantee know I can get there. If they don't want that result, then I'm probably not the right guy for them. I disqualified probably 70% of the market, but the people I'm talking to, my average transaction size went from $2,500 to freaking $7,500. And
Yeah.
I think in 30 days from the time that you and I met and had that conversation, got clear on that, I did an extra $100,000 in revenue between existing clientele that I tightened up my offer on and came back to, or either soliciting new business and marketing new business using your strategies and tactics and implementing them. Dude, 100 grand in 30 days. And I think yesterday I collected $25,000 in one day. I mean, the numbers are just, and for me personally, what it's really done is even from an inventory perspective, you and I have had some conversations around that have changed the way that I personally think about inventory and what I need to carry, and brick and mortar and the clothing business, inventory, at any given time, I can have $500,000 worth of inventory, which is a lot of commitment.
Right.
But even how to negate some of the downside there, it's been completely eye-opening. And the customer's experience and journey is so much cleaner, and it's duplicatable. And I can actually bring my team in and be like, hey, look, this is what we do here, this is what we do here, because it's not like a one-off every freaking time.
Yeah. The thing that I always look at is when we either sell our ideal customer the result that we can get them, or we just end up selling someone something that we know is not really the result they want, but we're going to sell it anyways because we're just not clear on our customer journey. So what ends up happening is, a lot of times those customers may not ever come back because we didn't sell them, we didn't sell them the long-term vision of what they really wanted. We sold them the short-term, gain, right? And so, what's cool, man, is to hear you literally 3x your normal sales, but now you're actually selling people transformation versus just selling them an outfit, right? And the cool thing is to watch how you've shifted in how you approach your business. And so it's not just about selling something, it's about selling the person the result and the vision of what they want to create from terms of confidence. The clothing helps do that, but really what you're selling them, man, is a transformation, and that's what's really powerful.
The other part it allowed me to do that I don't even think I've even shared with you is because I'm selling the result and the transformation, a lot of times they don't even know what they're buying, which sounds, I guess for some people that would scare them. But we dial in on the look, but they're not even because a lot of times in the past, clients would come in and almost micromanage the process, and they'd get in there and foul it up. And you don't want to be the I don't want to be the guy to be like, dude, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard, right? And so you kind of concede to a mistake because you don't want to be rude, especially in the South, where we really like everyone to like us all the time. Right. But dude, now they're not involved in the whole picking of this and that, and so I get to pick the best of the best. And what's cool about it is it puts all the pressure to deliver on that transformation. They make the energy and capital investment, but then I have to perform the best. It's on me to perform, and so they're getting grade A Vaughan work every single time. It's the best of the best. It's dude, I'm signing this. This is one of one. And that's freaking badass. I mean, you're asking me to do the thing that I'm the absolute best at, and you're trusting me, which makes me work infinitely. I spend more time now picking out clothes for people than I ever have, because I'm dude, I've got to hit freaking grand slam after grand slam after grand slam because people are trusting me with that. And that's
right.
Cool as shit.
For sure, man. Let me ask you this. What's the difference now for you that maybe 3 months ago you weren't thinking about, but what's been that big shift for you just from, what you're doing and what you're delivering?
So I've always viewed myself as being more in the consultation slash service business. Like that's where I kind of put myself, because like clothes are a commodity. You can buy them on Amazon, right? You can go buy one, get 17 free from other men's shops. So like that's not the it. But where I really got clear with you over the last 3 months and continue to get more clear on it is, I've got this network of people, clients that trust me. And I tend to work exclusively with either business owners or salesmen, right? People that are their walking brand and make money on what it is that they do for their clients.
Right.
So what's cool about that is, and there's a cost of entry, and this is one of the things you help me with. Like, I'm not inexpensive to work with, but you're buying into the club, if you will. And so, I love to connect and bring people together, but now it's like, now I'm even more intentional, and it's clear, hey, we need to have some events where we're bringing these clients in so that they can network, so that they can meet other people they're of the same mindset, right? And how do you increase the value of the experience? Because at the end of the day, that's, clothes, the way you feel is part of the experience that you're delivering with other people. But now how can I bring these people together? And like, that's really exciting, because at the end of the day, I just love helping people. So like, even before we jumped on this call, like you were talking about a guy that knew me, that knew I was working with you. And like the fact that y'all get to come together is like, dude, this is killer, right? And because I know how much of a difference it's made for me, I can look at my buddy and be like, dude, you'd be dumb not to invest, because here's your return. And it's like, dude, if it works for me, and I'm like not even like, I'm a newbie at this, and I'm not even like that inclined to it, it'll work for somebody that's more gifted than me, because I've never been the best. I just worked a hell of a lot harder.
Right. What I think is cool, man, is I really sat you down and was like, hey, man, what do you really feel like you're the best at? And some of those things you weren't doing or leading with. And so we immediately shifted that in your offer, which is like, hey, you're a networker, you're a guy that likes to connect people. And so we really put that in the forefront of your business so you could lead with that thing that you felt like was a big strength. And then we kind of got rid of some of the things that you were doing that you could do, but it wasn't really a big strength for you. And so just in shifting that up, I think that's really helped you kind of lead with your gifts versus leading with something you could do, but you weren't really super passionate about.
Yeah, the other two, I was looking at the numbers. So I have a consulting coaching business, right? And that was one of the things you were kind of busting me on. Is like, dude, why are you doing this and this and this? And I was like, I don't know. And so you kind of called me out on it. And as a result of that, it made me go back and do some reflection, be like, all right, what am I really trying to accomplish with the coaching deal? And from last year, we're halfway through this year, call it. Last year, I looked at my numbers of last year, what I got paid to coach people versus just this year. Halfway through, I've already 2x'd it, right? So I've already doubled, but it's all come from the strategy session you and I had about like, how do these things complement and feed into one another, and how do you get really tight about what you're offering and how you can help. And dude, that's a big deal for me. I mean, for me personally, that's the difference between my kids going to private school and me being able to pay an extra year of tuition or not. And so like just that one little shift of getting rid of the other stuff, and even the other part that I never even imagined, you've made me question some of my systems and processes, because like I went from helping people in person in a store to like now I'm helping people all over the country, which is because I've got this killer technology that only I have to custom make clothes for people. And it's like now I get to help all over the country, I guess technically the world, but I've focused on the country.
Yeah.
And inside of that, I'm like, all right, how can I tighten up my fulfillment processes? And like, dude, I'm running it from my cell phone. Like, that's the other thing. Like, I'm not landlocked. Like, I have freedom, which is something for me. That's why I got into business anyway. And so like it's caused me to look at a lot of things and look at like, wait a minute, what if we shifted and did this instead? Like it's dope, man.
Yeah, you know what's cool is, kind of being able to create a hybrid model of what was once something you could only do brick and mortar. Now you have, that virtual hybrid model, which now kind of transfers into a virtual model, where you may have a client in California, man, but you don't have to necessarily be there to sell that person, which is, if you guys are listening in, depending on where you're at, it's like, hey, you could just simply, go down in the show notes. You could click on, Vaughn's link and you can get a direct appointment with him. He can meet you virtually and get everything set up for you within, probably a 30-minute to hour conversation. And you don't have to do anything other than just stand in front of a freaking computer, and that's the beauty of what, you're able to do. Let me ask you this, man.
Yeah.
What's been, for you, like what's been the biggest kind of unexpected result you've gotten from this program?
Oh man. Let's see. 2 days ago. Like this is like, if you're ever, for any of y'all that are questioning, like I'm going to do a shameless plug for our boy Jesse. Like Monday, I met with a guy. He brought me $10,000. He reached out to me on Facebook Messenger and said, I have an event coming up that I want you to help me with. So he reached out to me. He had never spent more than, I don't know, $1,000 at one time on clothes. He handed me $10,000 in cash and has no idea other than one item that he picked that he was like, just fell in love with. Other than that, he's getting completely hooked up, and I didn't chase anyone. Like, and that was the part for me. These people, and he's so appreciative. He sent me appreciation texts about working with him versus like, fast, not so much anymore, but like fast forward or rewind 5 years ago. And like, I was like dodging people. I'd be like, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Like, can I sell you some clothes or whatever? It's like, it's completely shifted the game, and people appreciate and respect like what I'm good at. And back to your point of like, just being able to reach out, like, dude, we're across the whole country, and you and I are sitting here having this conversation, and I get to work with the best of the best, and I got in a plane because I wanted to meet you in person, but like, dude, we can do this over a video call. Like, there's no reason not to work with the best. And if you're not, like, I challenge a couple of my buddies that are business owners. I'm like, dude, if you cannot figure out how to deliver using and leveraging digital platforms, like, man, you're missing. The velocity in which you can grow your business is mind-blowing. You can change your entire life in less than a year financially.
Right.
Like, it's crazy how fast it moves.
Yeah, for sure, man. The biggest thing I've watched, the last 3 years especially, is the creativity of being able to take what people normally could only do in person in a brick and mortar business model and be able to convert that into a virtual or even hybrid model of business, and the speed of, them being able to access that. I mean, literally, you basically converted that in about 2 weeks to 3 weeks, and you did one, and then you're like, dude, that's just opened the door for so much more. So, hey man, like, how do we, if somebody's interested in what you're doing, how would they get in touch with you?
The best way to do it is Facebook or Instagram. Just send me a DM, mention that you heard this conversation and you want to improve your personal brand, your style game, whatever it is. And then from there, we just jump on a call and we go through, and basically I just get a real good handle on what you're trying to accomplish. And if I can help you get there, I'm going to be like, dude, let's roll. And if I can, I'm going to be like, man, here's somebody you should probably talk to, or I'm not your guy, because I'm not going to waste your time or my time. And that's something you help me get real clear on, Jesse. Like, just hit me a DM, and we'll rock and roll, man.
Awesome, man. Hey, if you guys are listening to this, in the show notes, if you just scroll down, It'll have a direct link to Vaughn either on Instagram or Facebook, so you don't have to go search him out. You can just hit that direct link, find him. The guy's a genius, man, and he will hook you up. And again, you don't have to be in front of him to do it, but the work that he does is amazing. So, hey, man, I want to thank you so much for being on today. Appreciate you not only as a client but a friend. And that's it for today. Any last words, man?
Dude, I just thank you for what you've done in the last 3 months. I mean, it's changed my life, like legit, and I really appreciate it. And I value our friendship, which has been a secondary benefit that I appreciate maybe even more than the first.
Nice. Well, hey, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you, and can't wait to see, what we do these next 3 months. So,
Man.
Cool, man. Thanks for being